Parenting with connection is the result of practicing the thoughts and emotions that create connection. Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andee Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This week, the episode I'm sharing with you is part 2 of episode 24. So in episode 24, I shared the first day of a 5-day training with you all. I taught this training a while ago and had this burst of inspiration a few weeks ago to share it on the podcast and share day 1. And today it feels right to share day 2. So here we go. It's so good. If you haven't listened to episode 24, you might want to go back and give that a listen and then jump back here. Also, if you haven't had a chance to subscribe to the podcast yet, will you take a second and go subscribe? That would mean so much to me. And if you could leave a review, that would be absolutely amazing. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to day 2 of the Connect Method Parenting special series we're doing this week. This is a training, like I said before, but just to recap, I originally made this for League, which is my Connect Method Parenting group. We do live calls in there. We do coaching and implementation. We work through the Connect Method Parenting Master's course that leaves you feeling like you've got a master's degree. And one of the things we do is special trainings. So when I was putting this together last week, I decided to not just have it for League, but to give a sneak peek to other people so you can experience a little bit more about Connect Method Parenting. So welcome, everybody. Andee Martineau here, creator of Connect Method Parenting. I have a book out you can go check out called Connect Method Parenting. Awesome. Okay, we're going to get started. So to review, yesterday on day 1, we talked about the 3 mistakes you cannot afford to make with your parenting. And I'm going to review them really quickly. We're going to start there to talk about what we don't want. I was just doing this with myself, looking at those little sneaky thoughts that are coming in that feel helpful, but aren't really helpful. I was just doing this in my own life and finding all of these little thoughts. I'm like, oh, so fascinating. So the first one we talked about yesterday, which are really these thoughts that are not helpful when we're parenting, is thinking that they should have done something different. They could have done something different, wishing they would have done something different or ought to have done something different is not helpful because it gets you in a place where we're judging and we're resisting reality, which even though it might feel like the truth to our brain, not helpful. Because a negative emotion, we talk a lot about this, guys, a negative emotion creates a negative result. It is the fuel to our actions. Think about it like the gas that creates the combustion that causes the car to move forward. Emotions and then thoughts, which are linked together, they're 2 in 1 because we have these beliefs, conscious or subconscious, they turn into an emotional response into our body, which then drive our actions. And we want to be onto these because at the root of our parenting, it all starts with our thoughts. So thinking they should have done better, they could have done better, I wish they would have done better, ought to have done better, all of those things, not helpful. Second mistake we cannot afford to make with our parenting is thinking, I really need them to listen. I hope they'll listen. This creates the emotion of graspy and desperate. And if you remember the story we talked about yesterday with that street performer who was singing Bohemian Rhapsody, and I was literally running to them, that attraction that he naturally created came from the confidence he had, the energy he had, his ability to relate to people and invite them in and getting them to want to listen to his music. And we were all literally standing around, at least in my brain, but I'm pretty sure everyone there, the hundreds of people there were like, I want to be here. This is so fun. I want to listen to him. That is what we want with our kids. So we need to find the times that we're interacting with our kids where I hope they wake up on the right side of the bed. I hope they listen to me. I hope bedtime goes better. Where is that coming up in our life? We've got to catch it. And the last mistake you cannot afford to make with your parenting is thinking, I can't do this. I can't figure this out. It's too late. I'm not patient. I'm not creative. I'm not organized. None of those are going to serve you. This creates the emotion of helpless and hopeless and discouraged. And think what kind of actions come when we're feeling helpless, hopeless, and discouraged. We are not going to be able to reinvent ourselves. We're not going to be able to think outside of the box. And really, we are in an emotionally triggered place when we're having these judgmental thoughts about ourselves, about our kids, when we're disempowered, hoping they'll listen to us. All of these thoughts I presented to you yesterday and we're reviewing today are going to get you in a place where your nervous system is activated And when our nervous system is activated in fight or flight, we can be grateful, for sure. We should be grateful for our nervous system, for our sympathetic nervous system to kick in. It's trying to protect us. But what happens as a side effect when we're having a nervous system reaction to something that's not life-threatening is our prefrontal brain is not accessible to us. The higher the emotions go, the lower the intelligence goes. And as a parent, we need to have our thinking, intelligent prefrontal cortex online so we can problem solve difficult situations and so that we are capable of showing up in a connected way. You will not be able to show up in a connected way if you're resisting reality, if you're judging your children, if you're judging yourself. So at the end of yesterday's call, I gave you 3 questions to dive in on. And in the Q&A, I really want to hear what you discovered as you answered those questions. And the questions were these: where am I shoulding, which is my word for like when they should have done something better and made it into a verb. You like it? Where am I shoulding my child? What impact is it having? What would change if I stopped? And what am I afraid might happen if I did stop doing it? And we applied those to all of those thoughts. So where am I shoulding my child and the impact it's having? Where am I being graspy, needy, or desperate? And what impact is it having? How would my life change if it stopped? And what am I afraid might happen if it did, or if I didn't do it anymore? And then where am I, or when am I feeling like I can't do this, or I don't know how to do this? I don't know how to help with the fighting. I don't know how to get the house clean. I don't know how to give bedtime any smoother. So where is that showing up in your life, and what impact is it having? So I want you guys to type in the Q&A, those who can, your answers. I love these. These are some good answers. Keep them coming. So one of you guys said that me trying to control my kids is having the opposite effect. Yes, I'm so glad you saw that. When we are trying to control something we don't have control over, which is different than influence. I was working with one of my one-on-one clients yesterday, and we were talking about this difference because he was afraid that he was going to lose control. And when he realized what I really actually have the ability to create for myself in this parent-child relationship is influence. We want to create influence, and we do that through connection. We cannot control our child. They can literally start spitting out the baby food at 6, 8 months old and let us know, hey, I got this. You're not going to control me. And some kids are more anti-control than others. Some are more passive or people pleasers. But just to settle in, like, yeah, I can't control my kids. So good. OMG, why didn't I see this before? Hoping the kids will listen is making me super weird and non-assertive to be around. Yeah. You mean not? Yeah. Non-assertive how you show up. Yes. Yes. I don't like it when my kids are needy and graspy. And I've kept wondering, this is so great. I kept wondering why they were like that. And now I'm wondering if it's because I've been modeling it for them. I've been shocked, but also I'm laughing at the reality of it all. So much awareness. This is what happens when we are willing to look at all sides of our thinking, the stuff that we'd call negative, the stuff that we'd call positive, or some people might call it like the shadow, dark stuff, the light stuff, all of it. It's all so important and so illuminating. Yes, I love that awareness. Another one, I thought I was just stating the facts that I was impatient or didn't know what to do when the kids were fighting. I was answering the questions and realized that makes me, okay. So as you're answering the questions, you realize that is creating a lot of insecurity. Yes. And if you said a negative emotion leads to a negative result, then it isn't going to help me figure out what to do if I have a negative emotion and I want a positive result. Yes, this is crazy, awesome stuff. Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you guys. You can keep putting them in. I'm going to stop reading there, but that was so much good awareness. And if you haven't answered the questions, go back and answer the questions because they're going to really help you see some things that you probably haven't seen before. Or if you have looked at it before, guys who have been working with me for a while, go in and see if you can see some new stuff. I'm always amazed when I go back and I'm like, let me revisit this situation. I think it's pretty clean. And I'm able to find a few more things that just up level it that much more. So yesterday, I also talked about truth number 1, that parenting starts in your brain. That parenting starts with a thought in your brain. So we have to become present and aware to what's going on in our brain. That's why I can't just start dishing out, hey guys, to fix the kids fighting, just do A, B, C, D, these actions. You have to start first with what is my belief? Because if I go in and I'm frustrated that they're doing this again, and I'm feeling like they shouldn't be doing this, and I'm coming in with that kind of angsty, resentful, frustrated anger, you can say all the right words, but they're going to come across flavored with that emotion that's behind them. The fuel matters. We want the fuel clean. If the fuel is clean, if the emotions are clean, and the thoughts are clean. This doesn't mean we have to be perfect, but we're constantly in a process of cleaning up our thoughts. Then we're going to be able to create the sentences that come out of our mouth to our children. And they're going to come across in a loving, compassionate way. Even if we have to say, hey guys, we don't fight. We can't say those kinds of words to each other. You're going to be able to say it in a way that's so compassionate and so firm and so empowering and keep the influence. So we need to look at the sentences that we are currently creating and thinking that are not creating the results that you want to unlock the possibilities of creating empowered beliefs that help you create what you do want with your parenting. So let me say that again. Parenting starts with a thought. It could be subconscious. It could be conscious, which means you could be aware of it or not aware of it. You could be doing it intentionally, or you could just be doing it unintentionally. But every single thing that has ever been created by a human has started with a thought in someone's brain. Computers, cars, indoor plumbing, heating, telephones, all of the things, no exceptions. If you don't allow yourself to think on purpose, if we don't think, we can't create. That's the bottom line. But here's the really important part. If we don't think on purpose, we won't create anything purposeful with our parenting. So the first step is to become aware or to become present to what you're thinking. I call this the thought download. Yesterday, those questions I gave you were basically questions to start to access some of those thoughts in your brain, to do a guided thought download so that you guys can start to see, oh, this is what's happening and this is what it's creating. And without any judgment, like the curiosity of a scientist, we begin to empower ourselves and step into a better version of ourselves through first taking the step of becoming aware or present to what we're thinking. And the second step is then to manage that thinking intentionally with lots of compassion, in harmony and in partnership with our nervous system. It's not just a willpower thing. That doesn't work. We have to actually really come from a place of love and compassion for ourselves, deep understanding. And then we can begin to think thoughts and create thoughts on purpose. And we don't often think of creation as something that happens in our brain, but that is where all true creation starts. And as we are here all talking about recreating our parenting, stepping into a new way of doing it, we are all here to create something new, something better, something smoother, something more consistent with our parenting. So we're here to create. So we have to know where creation starts. Because if we think creation starts with our actions, we're going to be very disappointed with what happens. Now, I want to talk about the second truth. And this is all leading us to our main emphasis today, which is about parenting sovereignty. So we're leading up to creating parenting sovereignty. We're going to unpack this layer by layer. So by the end of today's call, you're going to have the tools, the awareness to be able to start to create whatever that looks like for you. So truth number one was parenting starts in our brain. Truth number two is parenting is powered by our emotions. This is why paying attention to your feelings is so important. Negative feelings will be the indicators that we're thinking negative thoughts that are creating a negative emotional reaction and then cause us to spin. Now, I want to just pause for a second and make sure everyone knows that I'm using the word negative because that's what in society we label it as, but I don't think any emotions are negative in the way that they're bad. They're just maybe not going to get us the result we want, but we really want to look at them from a place of compassion and just openness, even welcoming them in instead of like, get out. I don't want to talk to you. You're not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to always feel happy feelings all the time. That's actually not human. Humans can't do that. But when we can step into understanding the power of all of the emotions, all emotions are welcome. All emotions are here to serve us. They will all allow us to fulfill the possibilities and potentials and create the results we want for ourselves when we can make friends with all of them. So we need to look at the negative emotions, but we also want to realize that when we're in a negative emotion, there's a thought behind it that's causing that we want to look at just to discover, just so that we don't stay stuck in it, indulging in that cycle, so we can get ourselves out of it, so that we can create something different. So you will think too that these emotions are coming from outside of you. But your emotions are always coming from the thoughts we have. And some are conscious, some are in our awareness, and some are subconscious because of society, because of trauma, because of conditioning, because of what we've been taught, just so many things, experiences. So they're all beautiful. We want to look at all of them, but no judging your thoughts or your emotions. So I want you to type in the Q&A, what situations are happening outside of you that your brain is convinced is causing you to feel a certain way? What situations are happening outside of you that are causing you to feel a certain way? I want you to just drop into this. Awesome. Okay, I see some comments. I think I get frustrated because the kids are fighting. Yeah, like it's the fighting that's causing the frustration. But there's a thought and a belief in there, probably that they shouldn't be fighting, or why are they doing this again? They're so unkind. There's a judgment or resistance to that that's coming up. And you guys who are in league, you know how we start to unpack this and view this through the lens of the nervous system, of developmental psychology, so that we can unpack this and create a new belief around the fighting that serves us and still allows us to be very intentional in how we help direct the kids. But I want to just say there's never just a situation that's forcing itself to cause us to think or believe a certain thing. Yeah. Lots of responsibilities, church, family, school, kids, fighting, picking up, complaining about jobs. Yes. We're like, all of these things are happening to me. And the problem when we're believing that, then we're the victim. We're at the effect of all of these things outside of us. And we tend to feel very helpless. Yes, my brain thinks the disappointment I felt last night was because bedtime didn't go very well. Yeah, instead of it's a thought. We want to look at the thoughts, because when we realize, oh, it's my thinking about the situation that's causing me to feel disappointed or frustrated, then I have control over that. I can do something about that. And I don't have to think something positive about something negative, but I can choose to start to change the way I'm seeing it, which will help me have a better emotional reaction and actually help me interact with the fighting or the messes in a way that actually gets something accomplished. Yeah, some more are popping in. That my daughter is super messy and leaves a trail of chaos behind her. I worry that she'll be a hoarder of her. Yeah, and her Asperger's will be more of a hindrance when she moves out on her own, when I'm not tidying up after her. Yeah, do you say, oh my gosh, this is happening. And we start to feel overwhelmed and helpless or at the effect of it. So much good awareness. So I want us to all realize what would happen if we were living in a place where, oh, this is happening outside of me. This is my belief. They're not going to be able to be successful on their own. They're going to be unkind because they're always fighting. They're going, whatever it is, I'm out of control. That's the state we're in when we're at the effect of the external. And when we can instead say, I am in control. I have agency. I have free will. I have the ability to look at this differently so that I can show up differently. And as a result, keep the influence, keep the connection with my child, but also change the way I show up, and ultimately start a chain reaction that's different, where they respond to me different, where things go differently. So I want us to be very careful to pay attention to thoughts like, I don't like, I don't want, that won't work. I've never done it, so it's their fault. She did this to me. Variations of those thoughts, because these thoughts will create disempowerment and block any new belief that is required for self-empowerment. We don't want to have the disempowerment. From a disempowered place, we're never going to be self-empowered. We're never going to be able to create a new way of being. We're never going to be able to show up and teach our children how to get along better if we're so frazzled every time they don't get along, or when the house is messy. If we're so frazzled when every time the house is messy, we're staying stuck in this negative loop, and we're not able to use our prefrontal cortex and create something new. So when we realize that parenting is fueled, it's powered by our emotions, we start to pay attention to the emotions we're having. So truth number 3 is parenting with connection is the result of practicing the thoughts and emotions that create connection. So I want us to think about a situation, and lots of you guys have posted things in the Q&A. Thank you so much for posting those. It's really helpful for you and for me to see what's happening in your brains. I want you just to pick one thing that you're like stuck on. You're like, this is not changing. I've been fighting it for a while, or it's really frustrating. And I want you just to have that in your mind right now, because the thing that has caused you to believe that thought you have about it, this is never going to change. They're not going to be able to be responsible or kind, or bedtime's never going to get better. The reason you believe that isn't because it's just the truth, like that's the way it is. It's because we have practiced it and repeated it so many times. Believing it has been the process of us deciding and accepting that it's true. Doesn't make it true. Have you ever seen different people react to different situations in a totally different way? I grew up in Arizona, and so never hardly rained. We loved the rain. Everything was canceled every time it rained. And I had a friend in Washington State. I remember having a conversation with her once, and it was raining. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so great. What are you doing? Because in my brain, you just sit out on the porch and enjoy it. She wasn't happy about it. She's, oh my gosh, it just means that the rainy season is starting. I'm so not excited. And I was, are you kidding? So we had two completely different thoughts about the same thing, rain. And that's how it is. There might be someone else who comes into our house and the house is messy. And oh, this is no big deal. We could pick it up really quick. In our brains, it's so messy. It's going to take hours. So just because we've decided and accepted that something is true doesn't make it true just because we believe it's true. So understand the difference. If you want to disbelieve something, you first have to recognize that you've accepted something as true and decide to change your mind about it. So that awareness piece is the first piece. If we can't even see that we've decided it's true, and we can't even see our thought about it, or we're uncomfortable looking at it because we know it's judgmental or not nice, then we can't even go to the next step. So stop beating ourselves up for those judgments we have and decide that we can change our mind about it. So if we want to disbelieve something, everyone remember this. Some of you have heard me say this lots of times. Some of you, this is the first time you've ever heard me say it, but it's the truth nonetheless. And there's always another layer. Like I said, right before, or this morning rather, I was doing my own thought downloads and steers. And I was, oh, here's another little sneaky thought that's not helping me. So there's always room for more awareness of what we've accepted as true to allow us to release it. The accepting this is what I'm thinking is this first step to changing it. And I am on a trajectory. I want to keep getting better at parenting. I want to keep getting better at life. And so I want to keep looking at those thoughts that are sneaking in that I want to release, but we have to look at them first. You have learned to believe something by practice and repetition. You have literally studied something to believe it is true. You will have to unaccept it as true and believe something different on purpose. So truth is not, it's true that the house is messy. It's true that my kids are fighting all the time. It's true that bedtime is a disaster. If you're new to Connect Method Parenting, I have a great way for you to get started. I've created a free course that covers some of the biggest challenges parents are facing and how Connect Method Parenting solves them. In an hour, we're going to talk about why parenting is so hard, how to get your kids to want to listen to you, how to stop yelling and losing your cool, and become that calm, confident, connected parent for good. It's the fastest way to get started using connection as your go-to tool for influencing and impacting your kids. Go to cmp.works/course to get instant access today. This is a decision we make. And sometimes we're going to love the thoughts we've decided on. We're like, I love that one. Such a good one that I believe my children are courteous or kind or hardworking. But some other thoughts, I'm like, that is not helpful. I think they're entitled. Super fascinating. What would be a better way to go about to teach them ultimately the same thing, to be maybe more, if it was entitled, to be more grateful for what they have, to not take things for granted. I still want that goal, but me coming with judgment is never going to get me there. So this is easier to understand if you make sure to separate truth from facts. So facts are facts. We don't say facts are truth. Facts are facts. We're talking about whether we believe them or not. Truth is more subjective. And everyone gets to decide their truth. Everyone gets to decide that for themselves. So a fact is a rock. This is a rock, and this is a chair, and this is a house, and this is a car. Truths are rocks are dangerous. Chairs are useful. Houses are great. Everyone should own one. I could have a belief about that. And someone else would be, I never want to own a house. I want to live in an apartment. Or rocks aren't dangerous. Geologists would be like, rocks tell us stories. Rocks are beautiful. Rocks are decorations. But this is the difference. I want you to notice the difference. These things can be true, but aren't facts in the sense that there is nothing subjective in them. So truths are choices. And this allows us to be very intentional and have the ability, the freedom to reframe things with our kids in a way that allows us to help them succeed and become the best version of themselves. So we can drop the judgment, we can drop the resistance, and as a result, be more compassionate, be more connected, and be more influential in helping them see maybe the values we want to teach them, maybe the ethics we want to teach them, the qualities we want to have them develop. What we believe and focus our mind on is a choice. So we can choose rocks are dangerous or rocks are beautiful. Both can be true, but we get to decide which one we want to believe and focus on. Same with all of the things with our kids. We can choose that the children are being rowdy and disrespectful, or we can choose a different belief. Hey, the kids need me to step in and set a limit right now. They haven't quite learned how to be respectful in this setting. It is also true that we have all aspects of us. There's parts of us that are amazing, and there's parts of us that are, we might cringe a little bit. Like bad, good, helpful, not helpful, all of the aspects. We all have them. When we respect that in ourselves, we can also respect that in our kids and not jump to conclusions or make things really absolute. It's not that they're rude. They just haven't learned how to communicate in a way that is softer or kinder. I'm going to help with that. See, we can help with that. But if they're rude, I don't know what to do. It's never going to fix like that. There's a problem with them right now. We're in a whole different spin. So what do we want to believe? And what do we want to disbelieve? Most of us are in a default believing and thinking mode. We're replaying the beliefs that have been programmed and practiced in our brain, but we get to change that. We get to change that. Let that sink in. Any thoughts you have about that, type them in the Q&A. I was just saying, yes, that makes sense. That feels good, but still a little bit of how would I do that? Because that's not something we're being taught. I wish we had a class in high school. Everyone's like, okay, you create in your mind and here's how you do this. That would be amazing. But we're here today doing that. So it's like we're getting that right now. So what we want is based in our future. Okay, quick review. What we are currently believing is based in past things. So our beliefs about our kids, our beliefs about ourselves, they are creating our results. So if we do nothing, our past beliefs will create our results. So if we just keep doing the same thing, we get to go into that insanity cycle, like Einstein called, right? Doing the same thing and expecting different results. Because what we're doing is we're bringing the past to the present. And with that lens, we're doing the same thing. We're responding the same way. Our nervous system is getting triggered the same way. We're having the same emotions when the kids are fighting or leaving messes or whatever it is for us. So we will simply keep creating the limitations of our past and confirm that we are limited, that we are powerless, that we are stuck and frozen. And I often hear parents say to me, I have tried this, I've tried that, it didn't work. So it's not going to work this time. Not worth it. I've tried to help the kids get along better. I've tried to make bedtime go smoother. I've tried, fill in the blank. And what I want to say to this is kiss of death. Dreams absolutely stolen. If you want to create a different future, you have to create something that didn't exist in your past. Think about the iPhone. Who would have ever thought? I remember when I first learned about it, I'm probably older than some of you, but I remember thinking like, who is ever going to want a phone they carry around with you? It sounds like a terrible idea, but they had this idea. Steve Jobs had this idea. I think people are going to want this, but he could not create that from the past because there was nothing in the past that was informing him of that was helping him even know how to create that. So if we want a different future with our parenting, if we want to create something different in the future, we have to go to the future. You cannot go to the past. So don't keep bringing those thoughts about yourself that you can't figure this out, that your kids are fill in the blank. You're going to keep creating the same thing. So current thoughts that we have that are based in the past, they are useless when it comes to creating a new future with your parenting. You have to create a new belief to create a new result in your future. And this requires consciousness. It requires you believe something you have never believed before. Because if you already believed it, you would already have created that result. You would have already done it. Does that make sense? So how do you decide what you want to believe? This is so important, guys. Everybody, this is so important. Let's pause and just really be present right now. How do we decide what we want to believe? First, you have to learn how to imagine the future you want. Let me say that again. You have to learn to imagine the future you want. You have to learn how to visualize the possibility, not from wishful thinking or like, well, we're like kind of skeptical. Maybe that might happen, probably won't. Have you looked at my house? Have you looked at my kids? This is probably not. We have to drop into imagining the reality of it. Think of when someone created the iPhone or the car or the airplane, they had to step in fully to the possibility that it was possible for them to have the airplane take off of the ground, to have the telephone actually work, to have indoor plumbing, light bulbs, all the things. They couldn't just be like, oh, I'm not really sure. When Edison was iterating on the light bulb hundreds of times, I don't know, was it thousands of times? He was in the belief that this was going to work. He wasn't in the belief it's probably not going to work. Here is what lies in one of the most important things up to this point as far as creating something new with your parenting. And the biggest problem is that we'll actually, if we don't really step into this future of this is what I want, this is possible for me, we're going to go through a phase where we're actually visualizing what is currently to our brain impossible because you won't believe it's possible for you yet. So the key is noticing if that comes up for you and allowing yourself to imagine that you believe something. So it starts with allowing yourself to imagine that you could possibly believe something and then visualize yourself. If this was possible, I could imagine that it's possible. Visualize yourself doing it, not yelling at your kids, not getting frustrated about the mess. And then we practice believing it. This is everything. Okay, I'm going to circle back to that, dive deeper in it, but I want to just put it in your brain right now. Think about this. Think about this. In case you've missed me talking about this before, we were talking all the time in here in League. And for those who are visiting, this is something we're talking about, dreaming about the impossible, creating new things for ourselves. But I just want to drill it down and make sure everyone is clear, whether this is the first time you've heard me talk about it, or you've heard me teach this multiple times before, that first of all, imagine that it's even possible that we could have this happen to us. Learn to imagine the future you want by allowing yourself to imagine that you could believe it. I could imagine myself possibly believing it. Go there as much belief as you possibly can. Okay, so today's call, I entitled it Parenting Sovereignty, and this leads right into it. I wanted to cue it up for all of those things, so we're ready to talk about this. And we're focusing on this, and those are important things to understand, because if we don't understand those truths, then we will not be able to create parenting sovereignty. And according to the dictionary, sovereignty means having independence. They say political, but I'm going to drop that because we're just independence in general, autonomy, freedom, self-governing. They also use the word supreme power or authority, or the authority to govern yourself. And I love that definition. It's absolutely perfect and exactly what we want with our parenting. We want to be independent. We want to be autonomous, free, self-governing when our kids act out, when they melt down or cause problems. We want our thoughts and emotions to not be dependent on the kids' behavior, where we're tossed around based on what they're doing. We do not want that. We do not want to be negatively impacted by the situation so that we get triggered or upset. This is something we are all working on. We're all probably good in certain situations and struggling with other ones. This is all part of the process. But the ultimate goal is that you become more and more sovereign, more and more emotionally self-sustaining and independent. So that when the kids go into a tirade or push back or don't pick up again or whatever the thing is, won't do their homework, that you have the supreme power or authority over how you show up to any situation. Because when you're in that place, you can move mountains. You can go in and set some limits and get things cleared up if things are going off track from such an empowered, beautiful place. And you probably all had the experience of being around someone that when they walk in the room, you feel like they believe in you so much. And you're like, I'm a better person when they're around me. They believe in me. They might come in and even give you some feedback. And you're like, thank you so much for giving me that feedback. I really appreciate it, because there's so much respect, so much connection, so much trust there. And that's what we want to create with our kids. And we do that by not being impacted in a negative way. Right? We want to be moved to compassion when they are struggling, for sure, but we can't be moved to compassion if we're getting triggered. So this is parenting sovereignty. So the ability to show up our very best in any given situation with so much compassion that we are able to navigate it in a way that serves our child and us best. This is parenting sovereignty. If we are able to be autonomous and free, then we need thinking and believing behind that's allowing our parenting to up level to that place, to show up with this firmness and compassion versus losing our cool or patience because the kids are fighting or aren't going to bed or won't do their homework. So when we are driven to and fro by the kids' behaviors or attitudes, then we are not sovereign. We are at the mercy of our kids and what they're doing, what they're feeling, what their attitude is. And we're really not able to serve them or us. We can't even think as much about them because we're so in our own head. We're so in our own judgment. So parenting sovereignty is about learning how to be free to show up exactly how you want, regardless of how well behaved your kids are that day. You stay in the driver's seat. You keep putting in the fuel you want, not your kids, not their behavior, not anything outside of you. And that is everything. So for today, we're going to dive into the first part of how we start to step into parenting sovereignty, how we start to get into this place. And this is one of the things that you are going to want to hold on to and create for yourself. And then this is your homework. And then we're going to dive more into it tomorrow. I'm so excited. But today, before we can go any farther, I want you to take some time to think about, how do you want to believe? How do you want to feel so that you are free around, and I want you to pick a situation. Be very specific. Your brain wants to say vague and general. That is not how the subconscious thoughts that are driving 95, 98. I've heard different numbers of how much that subconscious brain is driving the train, our behavior, our actions. It wants you to keep it vague because then we can't really change those beliefs. It keeps it safe, which it thinks it's safe because it keeps doing the same thing. But we're like, no, brain, we're going to go specific so that we can really tease apart a situation and create a new belief that actually is powerful enough to change the subconscious beliefs. So how do you believe and feel something that you don't feel or believe yet? And you practice. So here's the truth. New thoughts become new beliefs. A belief is just a thought you keep thinking. A belief is a thought that is so familiar, you think it without question. You just accept it. So we have all of these thoughts in our life where they become beliefs. So you just accepted it. We don't even question it anymore. You're going to pick one situation and one thought and start to be like a scientist and dissect it and not just accept it. And I would say, pick a situation where you're not liking the result. You're yelling. The kids aren't listening to you. It's a tug of war every day. It's exhausting. Look at that specific situation. And I would even get more specific and think about the last time it actually happened instead of it happens every day. It happened last night. It happened yesterday morning. Let me make my brain zero in. This is how we change subconscious thinking. So when you want to believe something new, you have to decide to learn it by practicing it and thinking it over and over again. You literally have to practice thinking a thought over and over while accepting it, and eventually you'll believe it. So it's brainwashing yourself to believe really powerful things on purpose. And really, that's what happened in the first place. We just did it unknowingly. We were brainwashed by hearing it over and over again. And our brain just pretty soon, that's it. We're going to just do that same process on purpose, and it's going to be perfect. So pick that situation, get even more specific to when it actually happened the last time. Look at the thoughts that are coming up from it. Accept it, love yourself, have so much compassion, and then decide what you want to believe instead. So everyone, for just a minute, as we wrap this call up today, close your eyes for a minute as you're thinking about the situation that I just got you to zero in on. And I want you to pick one thing you want to think and feel about it. One thing you want to think and feel about it. And I want you to allow yourself to step into that desire to want that. Give me a little hand, reassure me in the Q&A when you've got that, when you've got your thought, you got your situation that's been troubling you, you've got your thought you want to believe about it. I want you to write that thought down. And at least one time today, allow yourself to imagine it's possible that you could think this about it. And if I'm not quite sure if this would serve me, bring those thoughts tomorrow. We'll dive into them, what you came up with, and maybe some concerns you have about them. I know this is something that comes up all of the time because people are, if I let go of this judgmental thought that they shouldn't be acting this way, then I'm just going to be passive and I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to dig more into that tomorrow, but think, how do you want to show up when the kids are fighting? I would say I want to show up calm and confident. I want to come in with so much self-confidence and so much belief in my kids. Hey, they're doing their best they can, and they obviously need me. They're raising the SOS flag saying, Mom, I am in trouble over here. Get over here on the double because I am out of control. And I'm like, they're calling me. That's so good for me to believe that when my kids are struggling, however that looks, fighting, pushing back, leaving messes, saying words to each other that maybe are not kind in my mind, that's their SOS flag. And their higher self, their spirit inside is saying, I am struggling. Come over here. I cannot get control of myself. So that's really helpful for me. I want you to think of what you want to believe in your situation. And I want you to really go into the belief of it. Close your eyes. I did a little tiny bit of that here, but after the call, try to really visualize. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I saying? How is the interaction going? And that is going to start to expand your ability to accept a new belief around it. When I did competitive gymnastics as a kid, we did so many rehearsals in our brain, so many visualizations of us doing the whole routine in our brain perfectly, looking at the toes and looking at how my posture was on my head and my hands and my everything, my turnout. And I want you to get that specific as you're going into this. Really get into the details. I'm walking, I can feel the carpet on my feet or the cold tile under my feet, and I can feel the wave of frustration pass through me. And I remind myself that it's okay. All of the things that you can, as specific as you possibly can, because this is how we transform things. It is from the inside out. You can't fake compassion. You can't fake connection. You can't change somebody by shaming or correcting them with frustration. We can give feedback. We can have limits. We can have boundaries, but they come from a place of inside of us. They're generated from this fuel of compassion and love and belief. And that is the work we do here in Connect Method Parenting. That is the work that we're all working on. So everybody take some time, dial it in, get really clear on what you want to create so that you can step further into this sovereign energy of I get to show up how I want to show up. And we're just going to deep dive on one situation, one way you want to show up in that situation, in that one situation. And that is going to change everything for you. So do that. That is your homework tonight. If you didn't finish the questions last night, highly encourage you to take some time to do that too. It's going to create so much awareness about the sentences going on in your brain. Great. Some of you guys have already come up with it. I love it. If you aren't able to right now, take some time after and do that. And then we will dive into how we actually go from this visualization to moving through what I call it the sequence to get us from where we are now, not maybe totally believing it, to learning how to totally embody it and believe it and have it become our new us. So I cannot wait to talk to you about that tomorrow. It's going to be an awesome call. Thank you guys for sharing. I'm seeing lots and lots of this is what's happening. And this is what I want. This is a situation I'm going to work on. Bravo. So good. I see all of those. Thank you for posting those in there. Have a great day. Bye. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, come check out League, my Connect Method Parenting Coaching Program, where we take this material and we apply it using my proven formula. Head over to cmp.works/join.